Hello, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Keon.
And this is Scurry Tooter Toot because this week I gotta do that again.
Wow.
That's too can't keep a straight face while I say these acronyms. Like it's not possible. And this is Scurry Tooter Toot, that podcast with all the right curves in all the right places, because this week we watched Day One.
Written by Chris Chibnall.
Directed by Brian Kelly.
And aired on October 22nd, 2006.
Yeah, so in case anyone out there thought that like our episode on Torchwood was just going to be a one-off and then we would just like say, screw this and leave. No, we're back for week 2. I mean, we still could say, screw this, we're out, but...
Nah, we're in this for the long run. We committed. This show is, 40-something episodes? So we're here for almost a year.
It won't, because of the delays, it won't even take us to the next season of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
It won't even get us to the next season of Doctor Who.
Then after this, we'll have to go through and watch our second least favorite from every Doctor.
No. With the least favorite was enough, thank you. That was enough.
Yeah, our actual plan is to just watch Feast of Stephen every week until the next season comes out.
Our plan is actually to beam the massacre into our brain in as many forms as possible. So we'll be reading the novelization, we'll be watching fan animations, we'll be listening to the audio drama-esque version of it. So brace yourselves for the massacre-thon.
And when we run out of that, we'll just read reviews of it online.
Oh, jeez.
Sing its praises week after week.
Look, we've had some pretty bad ideas for Trust Your Doctor, but that would be by far the worst. I'm just going to say that. I'm just going to say it. That would be the worst. Anyway, so this is the first anything for Doctor Who written by future showrunner, current showrunner as of this recording, potentially not future showrunner anymore, depending if you believe the weird rumors about him getting kicked out. Chris Chibnall. Yeah, here he is. His first appearance in Doctor Who, writing Day One.
His Day One, so to speak.
Yeah. I didn't actually get that it was called Day One at first because it's Gwen's first day on the job, and then I thought about it, I'm like, oh, duh.
What did you think it was a reference to?
I didn't even know the name of the episode till I saw that it was written by Chris Chibnall, because again, I looked away from the screen during the title sequence for a moment, probably to write a note about something. Oh, to write a note about the voiceover that we get at the beginning of the intro title sequence now that we didn't see in episode 1.
Oh yeah, from Jack.
Yeah.
Well, okay, let's start at the very beginning, actually. So this actually starts with some bowling.
Yeah, so it started with bowling, and I just remembered the greatest movie of all time, Grease 2. Where bowling is a major plot point.
Wow. I didn't know there was a Grease 2.
Yeah, none of the characters... Okay, it's funny because if you go to it on Amazon, the description is like, all of your favorite characters from Grease return in this sequel to the summer blockbuster Grease. But then there's only one character who returns from Grease 1, and it's Frenchie. And she's not even like a main character at all. They just use her to shortcut you into liking the new main character because he's her cousin from England.
Doesn't have Travolta?
No. And also this is a digression, but they go to the bowling alley and they literally have a song about bowling, but it's not about bowling. It's about sex. It's a song about sex disguised as a song about bowling, and it may be the greatest song put to movie screens ever. And you know what? I'm gonna put it in the show notes just so everybody can experience this song.
Well, speaking of sex, this episode...
Yeah, watching this episode and realizing what we were going to talk about on the podcast, I was like, am I going to need to put the explicit tag on like these episodes of our podcast?
Probably.
Or like,
you probably are, to be honest. I mean, we probably should have had that explicit tag for a while now, but hey.
We don't swear any more than on the actual radio, so.
All right. I mean, does that make it okay? I don't think so.
But I don't think it requires the explicit tag. They don't put the explicit tag on radio stations, as long as you're not dropping F-bombs.
But does that make it okay? I'm not talking about rules and regulations. I'm not talking about societal standards.
I think it's fine.
I'm talking about
totally
getting to the heart of the matter and really figuring out, okay, whatever, I'll stop.
It's fine. It's literally fine. Don't think we have enough listeners that people would care. Somehow I feel like the average age of our listenership is above 21 too, so.
Probably. Anyway, Gwen and her boyfriend, whose name I forgot. Oh, Reese. It was Reese. They're like at some outdoor restaurant or whatever, and they're like, hey, that plane looks like it's on fire and coming straight towards us.
And it's an asteroid. Well, so this is kind of like a montage of their dates.
This is a meteor.
No. Link the chart. Also, it's a montage of dates, and Gwen is explaining to her boyfriend that she's in special ops now, which I guess is she can't tell him. Okay, she could totally tell him he's in Torchwood because, again, Torchwood is just a name that's thrown around in this episode. Yeah. It's not like a secret organization. People just know Torchwood, apparently.
Yeah, I didn't fully get that until this episode, but, regardless of whether people know about the alien stuff, and obviously Reese doesn't because he thought it was just a conspiracy theory or whatever, but, people know what Torchwood is. It's not a hidden thing. Yeah,
even though the voiceover at the beginning that we didn't say what it says, he says, Torchwood, an organization outside the police, above the government. And he's like, the 21st century is when everything changes, and we have to be ready. And then he says something like, arming the human race against the future. And I'm like, whoa, hang on, what? Whoa, what? Where did that come from?
That's right, take up arms. It's the only way. That's why Gwen gets a gun in this episode.
But alien arms.
Yeah, exactly. The next episode preview also shows some, gun wielding as well.
Just get a little spicy Pertwee gunplay in there.
Yeah. Except
good old
with
Pertwee
more
gunplay.
Realistic and automatic modern pistols, which makes it a little more frightening,
Again, this is another weird episode to talk about in the context of everything that's going on within when they give Gwen the gun and they're like, you know how to shoot a gun, right? And she's like, they're like, you were a cop, weren't you? And she's like, yeah, but we don't carry guns in the UK. If we're on the beat. But yeah, so the meteor crashes and Gwen gets a call to come in early because she wasn't supposed to start till the next day, but because it landed now, she has to go now.
Yeah,
actually, this is unrelated. Never mind.
Right. Whatever. They basically come and pick her up in the little Torchwood van.
In the Torchwood Range Rover. Yeah. Land Rover makes a cameo appearance in this episode in the background of a shot of the Land Rover dealership.
I saw that. And they kind of tried to blur it out too, but that logo is just too distinctive. So I guess the corporate branding has really infected me and done its job because I still recognized it.
It's hilarious how that logo is noticeable and identifiable, even though it's literally just
a green oval.
A green oval.
Yeah. Well, that's why there are those. Have you seen those Coca-Cola graphic T-shirts, but it's in another language? And
yeah, I used to have one.
Yeah, and you can still everyone still knows what that is, whether you speak the language or read the language that it's written in or not. It's still recognizable because of what it is.
Mm-hmm. Oh, actually, I had a Red Bull one. It had the Red Bull logo in Thai.
Oh.
But you still know what it is because of the logo, so still to your point.
Yeah.
All right, so they run away from the restaurant and they don't pay. And I was like, all right, so they're committing greed, another one of the 7 deadly sins. Gwen
I
commits.
thought you were going to say they're like committing eat and run, but no, greed, avarice, and gluttony.
Look, Gwen commits gluttony, greed, and lust all in this episode. It's 3 of them.
Wait, okay, so what are all of them? So there's greed, lust, gluttony, sloth, anger, pride.
Yeah.
And there's one more. Oh, envy.
Envy.
I only know those because of Full Metal Alchemist, by the way.
You threw yourself under that bus. You're like,
I'm not trying to hide it. I literally don't know. I didn't know before, watching that show.
Well, I'm gonna be watching Gwen. Gwen with a close eye. If she hits all 7 sins, we're gonna have a problem. I don't know why this is what I've decided is gonna be my segment for Torchwood, but I think it's funny, so I'm going with it.
The 7 sins.
The 7 sins of Torchwood.
Well, this episode is literally just about lust, so.
That's true.
Yeah.
I feel like necromancy should be
a sin.
sin.
The 8th sin. Necromancy.
The secret 8th sin.
They don't tell you about it until you commit it.
Yeah, once you do it, a hidden chapter of the Bible appears where God came down to Matthew and was like, "Thou shalt not commit necromancy."
Oh wow, you actually know some of the biblical details of this.
I don't think God came down to Matthew at any point. I think I got the wrong apostle, but I'm sure there's someone out there who'll correct us.
Speaking of people out there who are going to correct us, our episode, while we're recording this, our first Torchwood episode went out like almost 3 hours ago, and I do have a little correction from that one. So I guess this is an opportune time to talk about it. So last week, I said that Cardiff Bay is actually a river, and it is, but like if you look on the map, it's like right where the river widens into the sea. So it's technically still like ocean. So it turns out we weren't cheated and lied to all along.
Oh, thank God. I thought I was going to have to go riot at the BBC's office like, yo, you've geographically deceived me.
That's the secret 9th sin, geographic deception.
God came down to the BBC and was like, "Thou shalt not commit geographic deception." Anyway, so they go to the now crashed, as it's revealed to be later, a spaceship.
Right. Regular police and military personnel are already there. The amateurs,
they call them the amateurs,
so to speak.
So Gwen is kind of left on her own to deal with them because everybody else just kind of walks past them. And Gwen's like, "Hey, I'm with Torchwood." And they're like, "Get out of here, little girl." And Jack comes in and then commits just casual like
workplace
objectification. Yeah, sexism. What did we call it last week when he hit on Ianto?
I don't.
It's harassment, sexual harassment. Where he's like, from where I'm standing, she's not a little girl. She's got all the right curves in all the right places. I'm like, no, Jack, no. Don't do this to me, Jack.
Yeah.
That's not the only sexual harassment that occurs in this story.
No, it's not. And the other instances are also partially from Jack.
Look, to Jack's credit, at least he's an equal opportunity sexual harasser, and he harasses both men and women.
Yeah, that's what you need. If you harass someone, that's what you really need. You need to even out the playing field, and that makes it okay. Exactly. Life lessons from Torchwood. See, Doctor Who still is educational all these years later.
Absolutely not the message you should be taking from this.
Yeah, the message you should be taking from this is that, when Owen now starts sexually harassing Gwen as well, because that happens right now.
Yeah, because he calls her sweet cheeks.
Yeah.
And then she fires back with, "It's a shame your tool isn't big enough for the job." I was like, oof.
And then she throws some piece of equipment at him, I forget what, and it nearly, it almost pierces his throat. And,
but instead pierces the spaceship.
Letting out a gas. AKA the sex gas, which I don't think they ever call it that in the episode, but that's what it's called, like, on the wiki and such. Pretty apt description. They
Yeah, I mean, yes. Russell T apparently said that if we're launching an adult science fiction drama, it's kind of inevitable, check out Inevitable Science Fiction Podcast, that you're going to have to do the sex monster. Which I don't know if I agree with that, but I guess I can see where he's coming from.
Yeah, sure.
So the sex gas traverses London until it finds... Sorry, traverses Cardiff, you're right. It traverses Cardiff until it finds a lonely woman in an alleyway named Karis. And here's a fun fact from the Amazon X-ray for you. The actress who plays Karis, who I have written down here for Britain's Sarah Lloyd Gregory, she was, at the time of filming this, Gareth David Lloyd's girlfriend. Gareth David Lloyd is Ianto.
Oh, wow. Huh. Wow.
There's your Amazon provided fun fact for you.
Huh. Thanks, Amazon. Guess you're not so bad after all.
All those human rights violations you've committed, I guess we can look over them thanks to that fun fact.
Environmental damage is now okay. Anyway, her conversation is like kind of off-putting, kind of funny, but like, it's delivered in like a funny manner, but it's also kind of dark where she's like, she's really mad. She's trashing whoever she's on the line with, some guy who presumably like cheated on her or whatever, who we meet later, and we find out is having an affair with her. Getting kind of...
Yeah.
But then at the very end of the call, she's almost crying. She's like, all right, call me back. And she closes she ends the call.
She goes into the club. She gets into the club by kissing the bouncer because there's no re-entry allowed, but then he lets her in because I guess he made out with her.
Yeah, the sex gas has already invaded her at this point and, is starting to control her.
Yeah, and the sex gas survives off of orgasms.
Right. So
she finds a random guy, she drags him into the restroom, and he's all too ready to go. And then we watch the least convincing sex scene of my life. You're going to throw that out there. Like, I'm just going to say that one straight up. This is the least convincing sex scene of my life.
When we started watching Doctor Who 6.5 years ago, I didn't think that there would be anything in the show or in Doctor Who adjacent that would be like an actual sex scene. But here we are.
On a similar note, when we started the show 6.5 years ago, I never thought that I just watched the least convincing sex scene of my life was a statement I would ever make on this podcast. The guy dies.
Yeah,
when the orgasms.
Yeah, he kind of just turns to dust and his energy is absorbed by the
He
creature.
gets Infinity Ward.
Random guy in the club dies in Infinity War. So, the next day, Torchwood has heard of the death. Oh, well, actually, so first we actually get a scene of what's-her-face? Karis. Like,
Gwen?
Yeah, Karis. She's at home, And her dad is like, "You look pretty out of it, Karis. Like, what's going on?" She's just like, "I don't know. Couldn't tell you." Then Torchwood finds out about the murder. Well, death.
Yep. Also, Gwen has been profusely apologizing for releasing the alien. Everyone's like, look, it doesn't matter. The alien's out now. Now we got to capture it.
Thanks, Gwen.
Well, Jack says a line that I thought was like, the way he delivered it, I think, was neat, I guess, because I wrote it down, and he just goes like, we all make mistakes. Get over it.
Right.
And they get to the club, and Gwen's former partner is there, and he's like, yo, Gwen, where the hell did you go? We were all worried. He's like, special ops now. Torchwood.
They're like, oh, you think you're better than us, huh?
He kind of, I mean, he doesn't say that, but like you could see that's the way that he wants to say it.
I looked up this guy's name for some reason. Well, not for some. The reason was that I think he might be a recurring character because because of this appearance. His name's Andy.
Uh-huh. Wow, what a unique name. Not like Banksy.
Yeah, we already met Banksy, but we get more of Banksy right now because we find out that he was actually jerking off to the security camera footage of the guy and Karis getting it on in the restroom.
Yeah, so I was a little weirded out that they had a security camera in the restroom. I guess maybe that's just because in at least California that's illegal.
Yeah, there's like security cameras everywhere in the UK, especially in London.
I have to wonder if this is like a regular thing Banksy does, is just watch the security camera until there's a hookup in the restroom and then he just goes at it.
Yeah, I mean...
Or did it was just this one night he saw them going at it and was like, man, I haven't gotten my rocks off in 3 months. This podcast is definitely getting an explicit tag.
Yeah, he might have just been like, yeah, now's as good a time as ever. On the job, supposed to be bouncing that door. But here I am in the security. Yeah,
there were 2 other bouncers there.
Yeah, fair point. But yeah. Very questionable decision. But it looks like nobody found out, so hey.
I guess he got to keep his job after that. There's a weird running theme throughout this whole episode of people leering, mostly at women, actually, through video camera footage.
It really? What?
Yeah, because when Gwen and Karis are going at it.
Oh yeah, you're right.
And
wow.
Then like what's his name is watching and instead of alerting the team to the fact that this is probably a problem, he's like, yeah, just gonna save some of this footage for later. Yeah, he just definitely sits back.
Owen, that is. So he like, yeah.
Owen and many calls over Toshi and Jack, and they come over, and then even Jack is like,
is this,
very interesting. I mean, he says something that kind of implied that he was kind of into it too, and then he's like, we should go save her. Which, like...
Yeah, not a good look, Jack.
Not a good look, Owen, either.
Yeah, Toshiko is still kind of a mystery, honestly. She doesn't really have many lines in this episode.
Yeah, but I do think they kind of flesh out their roles a little in this one. So Toshi's kind of the... she's kind of the tech person, and then Owen is kind of the in a standard cop show, you've got like the medical examiner. That's like kind of Owen's role. He's like the person, and Toshi's the tech person. That's what I got out of it anyway.
Yeah, she's also more the straight-laced one, which we kind of saw earlier because the only thing she was using the alien tech for was like digitizing some books.
The one who's really a mystery is Ianto.
Yeah,
who just shows up in this episode and has the line, "Do I need to start fighting someone?" Which, like, that's a very ominous line coming from the quiet man who we've only ever seen wearing a suit delivering food. Like,
yeah. Plus, and then when his other line in the episode, like when they're talking about whether or not Jack is gay, and he's like, "Personally, I don't care." He's totally like detached from the situation.
He's very interesting. He's the one I'm most interested to learn more about going forward.
Yeah, I feel like if any of them were like going to be a surprise villain later on, it would be him.
Surprise. But we already did the Torchwood ally wasn't villain with Susie in the first episode,
which is exactly why it would be a shock to do it again.
I guess. Well, speaking of alien tech being stolen, Owen... So when they find Karis, Owen uses a portable prison that he stole and took out of Torchwood, and Jack's like, you can't take alien tech out of Torchwood without my approval, Owen.
Yeah.
There's also a line here. Okay, so last episode, I thought it was pretty weird that Torchwood had a morgue and like a cold storage. And I didn't mention that on the episode because I was like, maybe it'll come into play or something. And then in this episode, we find out that's where they get all their bodies that they use to fake people's deaths. Because when they're leaving the club, Jack tells Toshi to pull a body out of cold storage, mangle the face, and then throw it in the river and fake it so that he's got the identity of the man who got killed in the restroom. And they'll just say it was a suicide.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's why they have a cold storage. That makes a lot of sense.
Gwen is like, hey, you can't do that. And Jack is like, I think you mean we can't do that.
Yeah, there's a big theme throughout this episode where Gwen continues to refer to the Torchwood team as you, and Jack is like, you're part of the team now. It's we.
Yeah, you were unwillingly dragged into this, so now you're responsible, Gwen, and none of us are.
Absolving themselves of responsibility.
But yeah, then we get the scene where they go and get Karis, and there's a good like Torchwood open up like type scene. Yeah, what?
This is when they give Gwen the gun too.
Yeah, what is that thing called that people like sometimes not? Or yeah, like it's like kind of a meme. Like people, I don't know if people actually do this, but it is a meme of like calling the cops on someone or calling the FBI.
Swatting.
Yeah, swatting. Imagine like swatting, but with Torchwood. Like you call Torchwood on someone.
I don't. Sounds dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah, in hindsight, like the whole swatting thing was actually like a huge red flag that most people probably didn't notice. That like calling the cops on someone is actually like one of the most risky and dangerous things you can do. You know?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, so many of those incidents went sideways so fast. That really, you're right, that really should have thrown up a lot of red flags for people.
Yeah, wow. Well, anyway, they take Karis in and they imprison her in their, like, really poorly, like, they're
Stocked.
Yeah, their holding cells look like they're, like, they look like a dungeon, like.
Their holding cells definitely violate the Geneva Conventions.
Yeah.
Unlike how to treat prisoners.
Yeah. Especially when we get that, like, jump scare thing with the Weevil.
I was just glad they brought the Weevil back.
Yeah. I'm guessing the Weevils will be a major plot point in one of the later episodes, if not the season finale. I guess we'll have to find out.
Yeah, we better have more Weevils.
Anyway, Karis is not fully controlled by the gas. She's still kind of in control of herself, and I think she kind of like begs Gwen to get her out.
Yeah, and that's like why she couldn't remember when she was talking with her dad. She was like, I don't remember what happened, was because that was her back in control and not the gas.
Right.
And then Jack sends Gwen to go basically interrogate Karis, and they talk for a little while, but then Gwen feels uncontrollable urges to just make out with Karis. And they're making out. And then Karis is like, no, it has to be a guy. Because I guess the orgasm. You know, I actually don't know. You know, I was gonna try and make a theory right there, but I don't know.
I don't know either. So, guess we can just move on to the next scene where they pick up some Chinese. And we get the lovely sight of Ianto eating with a bib on.
Yeah, so they're sitting in the conference room eating Chinese, and then Gwen just blows up. She's like, how can we sit here and eat Chinese while there's an innocent girl who needs help stuck in the cell? And Jack just goes, well, since we've been eating here, the computers have been running constant measurements of her biology to see if we can find out what's actually different. We've also been taking air samples from the cell and discovered that she emits pheromones, which is why you so uncontrollably desired to kiss her. She's like, and he's like, is there anything else we should do besides trying to figure out what's inside of her? And she's like, oh, okay.
Should have just come out like, how can we just sit here, or Jack that is, should have just been like, well, yeah, how can we just sit here and eat Chinese when there are like literal slaves in the world who live in like really poor conditions and facilitate
just suddenly increase
all of like our lifestyle in the first world.
Increase the scope of the story by 5,000 out of nowhere.
Yeah, but I mean, just goes to show you that people only pay attention to what's right in front of them. You know, if you can just turn a blind eye.
The Chinese food?
Well, no, I mean, like Gwen is like only concerned with the suffering that she's privy to, that she's witnessing. Yet, like at the same time, the entire like British and like also American lifestyle is like built on the backs of like basically slave labor in other parts of the world, and like radical like bad things happening to other people so that our lives
radical
can be better.
Bad things.
Yeah.
Well, also, I mean, I think it's a little bit. I mean, I agree. I think people are short-sighted in general, but I think it's a little bit understandable in this episode because Gwen is responsible for Karis's suffering. Like, personally, it's her fault, so she is seeking to fix that at the moment.
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting that they should have like increased this in scope by bringing any of that up, but like, I don't know, it's just something I think about pretty frequently. That it's like, yeah, it sucks that like, you know, I don't know, that like, never mind. I'm not going to go on with this. We don't have to dwell on it.
Well, they have this moment where they're... Okay, so I wrote down this joke in my notes. And I don't know if I'm going to say it or not, but I think I am.
You can always cut it out.
But so they have this moment where Gwen is talking to Jack and is like, you spend so much time here with the alien stuff that you don't know what it means to be human anymore. So Jack goes, well, show me what it means to be human. And then it smash cuts to Gwen with like a conspiracy board set up. And in my notes, I have, quote, what's it like to be human, unquote, open quote. Well, you got to be a cop, first of all, close quote, because that's what it felt like happened here.
Yeah, you have to be a police officer and a conspiracy theorist. Those are the only two requisites.
The two genders, police cop and conspiracy theorist.
I just thought it was funny that Jack, like, I mean, I have in my notes, like, hey, Gwen, can you tell me the meaning of life real quick? Like, like he kind of just pins it all, like, I don't know. It does feel kind of clunky, and I don't know, I feel like the humanistic thing is something Chris Chibnall definitely, in the 13th Doctor era of Doctor Who, like, goes for a lot. But I think does it in a lot more of a refined way and a more measured way and a better way, probably because of more experience. I don't know. It feels a little weird here, a little out of place, a little clunky.
Well, mainly because it smash cuts to the conspiracy board, and like, okay, that editing technique, you typically put like what emphasizes your answer to the question as the next scene, right? So the way that this editing was set up, it kind of seems like Jack is like, hey, what's the meaning of being human? And instead of what I think they were going for, which is that you need to care about the individual and not just like catching the alien, you need to care about like trying to fix Karis. This is problem. it implies that like to be human you need to like obsess over minute details and make a conspiracy board, and like
What?
the editing I think is what lets it down, and not necessarily the lines themselves don't necessarily let it down. Presumably like these scenes were scripted in this order, but anyway.
Nah.
I don't have anything more to say on it than that. This is one of his earliest writing credits to his name.
Oh,
too.
really? That's interesting.
Well, his earliest notable credit. He did serve as head writer on a show called Born and Bred from 2002 to 2005, which I think is his earliest credit.
Oh yeah, I mean, he's in his late 30s at this point, right? So that's kind of a late start to writing TV, I think. Because he was 18 in like what 80?
He was born in 1970.
Yeah, so he was in his mid 30s, I guess, when he kind of started writing TV. I don't know if that's late or not, actually.
Don't ask me.
I would imagine it is, because people go to school to write TV and then get jobs doing exactly that, like right when they graduate. So,
well, anyway, while she's going over her conspiracy board, they're like, "So Karis emits pheromones that people are basically driven to have sex with her," and then they're like, "Wait, where's Owen?" Cut to Owen wearing no clothes.
Well, he's wearing handcuffs. Well, let's not forget that.
Handcuffs are not clothes.
Maybe not to you.
You don't consider bracelets clothes, do you?
Why not?
Fine.
Look, all I'm saying is if you go outside fully nude, but with handcuffs on,
you would get arrested.
You would be fine.
So she being Karis, duped Owen into coming into the cell, stole his pass key, and escaped, but she's trapped inside Torchwood, and Jack inadvertently reveals that the severed hand of the doctor that's been sitting in the background of all the shots is like the most important thing in Torchwood, and she grabs it and he's like, no, not the hand. And I thought this scene was very interesting because if you haven't watched Doctor Who before this point, there's like a mystery here, right? Like the mystery is like, why does he care so much about this hand?
Yeah.
Which I think is really interesting because this is something that explicitly you will have a different experience having watched Doctor Who versus not. Because if you've watched Doctor Who, you know, oh, this is the Doctor's hand, and Jack is hanging on to it until the Doctor ends up taking it from him later on, taking it back. But if you're just watching Torchwood, you're like, man, I really wonder like what they're going to do with this hand and why it's so important and what's going to happen, you know?
Yeah, it would definitely be a letdown, I think, if you went into it like that, because I'm assuming they don't really expound on this at all. And it does seem like if you just go into this blind, like, yeah, it seems like it's setting up some sort of season-long thing. Or perhaps show-long thing with the hand, but it's probably really not. I mean, obviously it comes into play in Doctor Who, but like, who knows if they're going to expound upon it more in Torchwood.
Well, I guess we'll have to see.
Yeah.
You know, we'll have to see.
Karis escapes. She gets out into Cardiff at large, and they leave their base, their underground lair thing, and they're like, well, shoot, like, there's no way we're going to get her now.
But that turns out not to be true because Toshi reveals, well, I guess they reveal that Toshi is a master profile, well, so that she works off the profile that Gwen created, and is like, well, she's looking for sexual release, she'll probably go back to her ex-boyfriend / regular boyfriend / she has a bit of an ill-defined relationship with this man.
Yeah, so she goes over to Eddie's. Eddie is the guy she was talking on the phone with earlier. And turns out that he had been having an affair with her.
Yeah, she was the other woman.
Yeah. And she's like, hey, Eddie, I could kill you. And then
he's
she
like,
does.
yeah, right. And then, yeah.
They get there too late. And then they find out that that Karis works in a whatchamacallit. What are these, sperm donor place?
Oh, the fertility clinic.
Yeah, the fertility clinic.
Because she worked at the fertility clinic.
Right. And I totally forgot, like, it's only been like a day, like, in, like, yeah.
In Torchwood time.
Yeah. I don't know, for some reason, at this point in the episode, I don't know if you had the same thought, but I was like, man, it seems like it's been way more than one day.
It seemed like it had been a week.
Yeah. Especially in
and I was like,
that was
but it's been
that was I think, like, I that feeling hit even harder at the end when Karis went back to her dad and they had this, like, they reunited, but she's only been gone for, like, he saw her that morning, right? Like,
yeah. I mean, that Doctor Who runs into that problem too, where, like, the companions come back and they're like, "Oh my God, Mom!" And Mom's like, "I saw you literally yesterday," and then it's like, time machine.
Yeah, but even that, Doctor Who, like, acknowledges that this is, like, the way the reunion between Karis and her dad was like directed and shown to us. It was as if like they hadn't seen each other in a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, she goes to the fertility clinic, and Torchwood gets there, and Gwen decides to sacrifice herself.
Yeah. There's also a scene in here where Karis is, when she's walking to the fertility clinic, she's looking at all these sexual advertisements all around, which makes an interesting commentary on how, sex sells.
Yeah, no, I might be wrong about this. Maybe it was some other country and not the UK. So I guess one of our UK listeners, maybe will correct us on this. But, like, I thought there was, like, laws in the UK to prevent, like, I thought you couldn't, like, have sexualized ads unless you're selling, like, a sexual product,
I genuinely don't know, so I can't comment.
Yeah, maybe it is true and it's like nobody really follows it or enforces it type thing.
Yeah, again, I don't know.
Yeah, here you can.
Maybe all these ads are selling sexual things.
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe they're selling lingerie. I did not pay enough attention to the ads to know what they were selling, gonna be honest.
And they go by too quickly. You'd have to pause on each one, which I did. No, I'm just kidding.
And then you added yourself to the masturbation page on the TARDIS wiki, right? Which is way more detailed than you would expect a page on the TARDIS wiki about masturbation to be.
Yeah.
Just gonna throw that out there.
Yeah, that exists.
But yeah, like you said, Gwen sacrifices herself. She basically tells the alien to leave Karis's body and enter hers.
Not just leave. That would be the best of both worlds. It's like, hey, can you just, like, leave? Should have just been like, hey, what about that human population on the moon? I hear they're really horny. And the gas is like, oh, sweet. And it, like, leaves.
Okay, well, the gas in Karis, so Karis just makes, somehow in the time it takes Torchwood to get to the fertility clinic from the ex-boyfriend's place, she goes through, it's got to be like 10 guys in the fertility clinic.
It was like 3 or 4.
No, there were just piles of dust around the room.
Oh. We only saw like 3 or 4 guys in the waiting room or whatever, which, by the way, I feel like this scene with the guys in the waiting room did a very good job of capturing how awkward it would be to be in a fertility clinic waiting room.
Karis also commits sexual assault / rape ? Of the first guy, because he goes in And she shows up and she's like, come on, let me help you out. And he's like, nah, man, I'm gay.
Nah,
and then
man.
she just...
Nah.
That's not how he delivered that. But I think you get my point. And he clearly doesn't want it, and she's like going for it. So, yikes. But then again, it's an alien that dies at the end of the episode, so I guess those sins are forgiven.
Yeah, I mean, do the 7 sins really apply to aliens?
Okay, that's a heavy question that, like, there are probably multiple schools of thought on whether or not the Bible and how much of the Bible and how much of Christianity would apply to, like, aliens if we discovered them. And I'm not going to pretend like I know anything about any of that. And I'm going to leave that to people who are knowledgeable.
I might pretend a little bit.
Well,
just a little.
Don't let me stop you. Or do. Up to you.
Anyway, back to the actual story at hand. The gas leaves Karis's body, and Jack just uses the
portable prison
cell thing to capture it, because there was this big thing where like Toshi and to an extent Owen were like, "Are you really gonna let her do this, Jack? Like, you're really gonna let Gwen sacrifice herself?" And he's just like, "Yeah, don't see why not." So you kind of you think Jack is like really, I don't know, hardcore and hard-hearted, but it turns out he had this plan all along, or so or so the scene seems to imply. Maybe he was just like, "Oh, sweet," like he just dug into his pocket and was like, "Oh, here, this thing, we can use this." But no, he probably had it planned all along.
I like imagining that idea that he just reaches into his pocket. He's like, "Oh, cool! I forgot I had this."
Was totally going to go through with it, and then in the last second, he realized he has the means to stop it. Well, anyway, this ends with Gwen being very distraught, and Jack says, "Hey, go home and eat some lasagna." He does. The end.
Okay, hang on. No. She goes home to eat the lasagna, and then she's not really listening to Reese talk, and he's like, "Are you okay?" And she's like, "Let's go to bed." And he's like, "Ooh, biggity booty, you're gonna get some tonight." Except he doesn't say that, he just shows it on his face. And
does.
Then it ends. And then it ends.
Yeah, he does.
Look, that was critical information.
This is key to understanding the underlying themes and meanings of day one.
Yes, because at the end of the day, Gwen too herself engages in adultery, first of all.
Wait, what?
But also the carnal lust. Because she makes out with Karis in the cell.
Well, all right, fine. Sure. Yeah, you're what, 3 for 7, Gwen? Not looking good. Not looking.
I'm just waiting for her to commit sloth one episode.
Yeah, that's really the only one she's actively like not done, you know? She's actually been very proactive and not lazy in her various roles so far.
I don't know. We could make a case for Pride.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, add Pride on the list. 4. There, 4 for 7. More than halfway there, Gwen. More than halfway there.
This reminds me of Star Trek 5, where they take the Enterprise to the center of the galaxy and find God, or a guy claiming to be God, and that's where the famous line, the perfect line of dialogue. What does God need with a spaceship?
Yeah, even I know that
Comes
line.
from.
Haven't watched a single minute of Star Trek.
Man, that was a weird movie. Not good. Not good.
So why does this remind you of that?
Just because we were talking about God and aliens.
Oh. Okay, I thought you meant the actual episode of Torchwood reminded you of it.
No, this conversation.
Well, I only have one thing I really want to touch on here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, so, partway through the episode, they're trying to figure out, like, where the meteor came from and, like, what the sex gas is and everything like that. And Jack says something like, he's using the satellite to track the inward trajectory of the meteorite. Someone, I forget, was like, probably was Gwen, was like, what? And he's like, a little technobabble never hurt anyone. But like,
I wrote that quote down too.
yeah, but like, when you actually think, like, that doesn't really seem like technobabble. Like, I'm using the satellite to track the inward trajectory of the meteorite. Yeah, like, yeah, it uses some advanced words, but like, it makes sense, you know? And it's...
Yeah, but I don't think something being technobabble necessarily requires it to not make sense. It just has to be... It has to acquire a knowledge of science greater than perhaps the average that the audience has. Right?
Yeah, but even still, like, regardless, even if you consider that to be technobabble, like, this doesn't really seem like technobabble, right? Like, you don't even need to have a knowledge of science. You just need to know what the words mean. So, like, I'm using the satellite to track the inward trajectory of the meteorite. Like, I have a very bare minimum understanding of science, any science topic, any field. But, like, I just know what those words mean, so I understand what he's saying. If that makes sense.
I guess.
And like, the reason I want to bring this up is because a lot of people online like talking about how Stephen Moffat was really the showrunner of new Doctor who most brought like interesting sci-fi concepts to the table. A lot of people like to say that, to an extent, Chibnall, but mostly Russell T, didn't really deal with science fiction all that much. And maybe this is part of it. Like, this is, in the show, this is delivered as like technobabble, but like, personally, I didn't really think it was. I think it was just using several like somewhat advanced words.
I guess. I don't know. I would classify it as technobabble.
Nah, yeah, it's not a big deal. I don't know. I don't even know.
Because, I mean, even just like, in Star Trek, someone will say, well, we need to invert the tachyon beam so we can create a shield modulation. And you can understand every single one of those words, right? Like, invert, okay, tachyon is a particle. Shield, you know what a shield is,
well, that's
right?
that's the one that would trip you up. Like, yeah, that might be technobabble, because, like, who the hell knows what a tachyon is? Like, not many people, probably.
Okay, but even if I just said, you need to invert the particle stream to create a shielding barrier, like that, you could understand all those words and like each word individually, and I would still say that that's technobabble.
Nah, I wouldn't. If you replace tachyon with particles, like, nah, I wouldn't.
Well, we'll probably just have to disagree then.
Yeah.
Because I would say that's technobabble.
Well, that's all I had, honestly.
That's all I had, except like Gwen and Reese sit on the same side of the table when they're having dinner together, and I was like, wouldn't you want to like look at each other? Like, wouldn't you want to sit on the opposite side of the table? But whatever.
Yeah, much easier to fling food at each other when you do that. So, really poor decision to not do that there.
Well, speaking of flinging food, Britain's 10 actors.
What?
I don't know who
I only looked up. Yeah, I only looked up Sarah Lloyd Gregory because I felt that the other characters were too minor to look up, and also I was just lazy.
Well, so I looked up Rosso Hennessy, who plays Sergeant Johnson.
Who the hell is
who
Sergeant
I think was
Johnson?
the head of the military when they arrive at the meteorite crash.
Uh-huh.
And he actually has like a pretty prolific career. He was in Game of Thrones.
Huh.
He was in Mission Impossible Fallout. a show called Da Vinci's Demons, which I wrote down because Brandon Charleston, who plays Ivan, was also in, and then Lex, which is a show we've considered for Inevitable and is on the list for Inevitable.
Interesting.
For Sarah Lloyd Gregory, did you have anything for her that you recognized besides Casualty?
No, but I just wrote down the stuff that she was in that was big and that she had a recurring role in, like Y Pris. I don't really know if that's how you say that show's name or what that show even is.
How's it spelled?
Y, like the letter Y, space Pris.
I feel like that's the name of a city or something.
Yeah, no idea.
Well, whatever.
She was in something called Belonging. She was in Alice, Alys. She was in Living a Lie, and she was also in Doctors.
Oh, was she in Doctors? I missed
Yeah.
that. Well, Brendan Charleston as Ivan Fletcher, who's Karis's dad, was also in Doctors and Casualty and Coronation Street and Da Vinci's Demons. And then I also looked up Justin McDonald, who played Matt. Matt was... Now I'm forgetting
Was
who
Matt the guy
was.
who got killed? The first guy who got killed, or multiple guys who got killed? I think Matt was the guy who died.
Yeah, I think, yeah. And I wasn't going to write him down at first, but then I did. And I'll tell you why. So he was in Casualty, Emmerdale, Doctors, and The Bill, and then a movie called Vampire Diary. And the Vampire Diary is the reason why I wrote him down, because if you go to his IMDb page, there's a picture of him, and then next to it, there's usually the gallery, right? And the gallery was the first thing in the gallery, and the only video of him was the trailer for Vampire Diary.
Uh-huh.
And I watched the trailer for Vampire Diary for some reason because I was bored. And it's the most mid 2000s movie trailer in existence. Not only that, it looks like a movie that was like based on this episode of Torchwood, although not actually, but it's about a vampire who, like, half the trailer is that vampire just having sex with people of both genders, and I couldn't actually discern if there was a plot to the movie. The trailer started to feel a little bit like a porn trailer halfway through, and I'm like, this is getting really weird. And yet at the same time, still feels like the most mid-2000s trailer I've ever watched.
Wait, is he the vampire?
No. I think he just plays some random side character.
Well, remember, this is like during the age of, like, when Twilight was huge and there were like those 10,000 like knockoffs of it. Even though Twilight itself started as a Harry Potter fanfic.
Did it really?
It was the original incarnation of Twilight was a Harry Potter fanfic on fanfiction.net.
Wow, I had legitimately no idea.
Yeah. And
I had legitimately
must
no
have been
idea.
really weird. I wonder what the reaction was when people found out it wasn't written by like a teenager, but actually like a 35-year-old woman.
Wow. It's so bizarre to me then that Twilight started as a fan fiction and then like 50 Shades of Grey started as like a Twilight fan fiction.
It did? I didn't know that
man.
one. I had
Oh yeah, 50 Shades of Grey was a Twilight fan fiction.
Oh man, maybe I'm thinking of that one. But I feel like Twilight...
It's turtles all the way down.
I feel like... I don't know. I might be wrong then. I don't know. I'll look up whether or not Twilight was...
We'll put it in the show notes and we'll find out who was right.
I think I think I vaguely remember hearing what you said. I'm pretty sure that's right. But then, I don't know. Yeah. I'll just put whatever's right in the show notes. Or whatever the internet claims in the show notes, rather.
Yeah, pretty much. Just throw that shit into the show notes. Well, yeah, besides that, I've got nothing. If you would like to email us, you can reach us at thedoctor@decorativevegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on day one. You can find us on YouTube at Decorative Vegetable. You find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify, all at Trust Your Doctor. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter, TYD Podcast, and follow us on Twitter. Next time we're watching Ghost Machine, not Ghost in the Machine, just Ghost Machine. But until then, the end.